It's about an hour and a half since I had my doctor's appointment, and I have just, in the last 10-15 minutes, stopped crying. And that's only because I sucked it up and tried to take some action on finding a new doctor. I don't ever post videos like this, y'all. Just really sucked. Oh no, I don't want to start crying again. It really sucked. So we moved almost a year ago to the Sioux City, and I have yet to take it upon myself to find a general practice doctor, someone who can do physical stuff, lab works, physicals, exams, lab works, and just trying to help preventative care and maintaining, and if I have any injuries, minor injuries or sicknesses, colds or flus or whatever. And I have been putting it off. But then I made an appointment. It took me a month to get today's appointment. And to this doctor that was recommended to me. My husband had seen him once. This man had a very positive experience. Sorry. So my appointment was at 9 o'clock this morning. They told me to show up at 8:45. I'm an early person, so I was there at 8:30. Sat in the parking lot, tried to calm my nerves because I always get nervous going into doctor's appointments. And 8:40 rolled around, walked in. They had one person behind the desk who was not only checking in patients, but checking patients out. And there were two people, older people in line. Both were having trouble figuring out how to check in and check out. One of the women, poor thing, the lady at the front desk was telling her, she was trying to check out and said, all of your notes from your appointment will be on your My Chart. And the poor lady goes, I got a new computer. My Chart was on my old computer, so I can't access My Chart anymore. And I was like, oh, she doesn't realize it's on the internet. It's not something you install on a computer. So as long as you have your name and password, you can check into your My Chart from any computer. But the woman at the front desk didn't explain that to her. Just said, here, call this number if you have trouble getting into your My Chart, but your next appointment will be on your My Chart. And then this other man, evidently he hadn't filled out the pre-paperwork through My Chart that they send you a few days or a week before your appointment. You have to fill out all this paperwork online, which I had done. And this poor man hadn't. He was an older gentleman. And so she then went through every single question standing there. So I stood in line for 15 minutes. I got up to the front desk finally to see her and check in. And she said, did you fill out the online paperwork? I said, yes, through My Chart. And she said, okay, well, I still have to go over through some questions. And she asked me stuff that I'd already filled out on the question. She said, what's your race? What's your race? I'm thinking, I'm very pale, white. And then she said, so do you need an interpreter? What language do you speak? I'm like, English? It's stuff that I know I checked on the forms. And she goes, do you have any outside employment? Again, I had checked no employment, even though I have a small income from doing YouTube. I always check that I'm unemployed, that I don't have employment outside of the home. And again, that was on there. Anyway, she asked me some repeat questions. And then they took me back once I did that. They took me back fairly quickly. The nurse was very nice as she checked me in. My husband had told me that when he had seen the doctor, that he was very good. Making sure that he was very good at answering all his questions and kept asking, do you have any more questions? And I like a doctor that just takes all your questions when they see you, and that you don't feel rushed. And so I was excited. I was excited to see the doctor. I had calmed down by that point. My blood pressure was elevated, but wasn't high, which is typical for me. I was looking forward to asking questions about, struggles I've been having with weight loss and frequent injuries from exercising that I've had, and not knowing properly how to treat. Like, I had questions like on next time I throw my back out, how should I treat that? I brought in a supplement, and I was hoping to get their opinion on the supplement as to whether or not it actually works for weight loss, how it helps with metabolism. So I brought that in. I had questions about sleep. I haven't been sleeping well between 2 and 4. So I had all these questions that had just been, piling up because I haven't seen, I did see a doctor right before we moved here, or right after. I think I drove all the way down back to where we moved from. Anyway, so it'd been almost a year since I had seen a doctor. And so I sat down, he comes in, introduces himself, and goes, let me type some stuff in the computer and read your chart, and then we'll talk. I was like, okay. So as he's doing that, I have my phone out, and I am looking at my questions because I don't want to forget my questions, And then I had also taken pictures. So, like, I had a picture of when my elbow was inflamed, and I had a picture of my swollen ankles because I've never had to deal with, swollen ankles. And so from past experiences with doctors, I know that they appreciate pictures. They, and they're fine with me. Typically, they're fine with me looking at my phone for my questions. And so he turns around as I'm not even like texting on my phone. I'm just looking at my phone. He turns around. He goes, we have a no cell phone policy. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, it's not on. I was like, because I had turned the sound off. Like, even if everything was on. I said, I'm just looking at it to make sure I remember my questions to ask you. He goes, well, we have a no cell phone policy, so you'll have to put that away. I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, plus the nurse already took down a bunch of your questions, so I'm going to ask you those now. I was like, oh, okay. So I put it away. I thought, well, that's, he didn't say it very friendly. He seemed annoyed. Like, I had already started the appointment off annoying him. And so then he goes through the questions and asking, and he was just very dismissive. He said, I see here you're having trouble sleeping. And I said, yes, it's always between 2 and 4. It's a recent thing. Probably had it for a couple weeks now. It's very annoying. I said, but I'm exhausted in the afternoons and I'm finding myself napping. He says, well, don't do that. I said, what? He said, don't nap. He said, that's why you're not able to sleep at night, is because you're napping. And I go, well, like, even when I'm not napping in the afternoon, because that's not a consistent thing, I said, I'm still having trouble sleeping from 2 to 4, and then I'm tired the next day, like exhausted, like really run down. And he goes, well, I'll prescribe you a sleep medication then. And I was like, how did we jump from no naps to sleep medication? I was like, okay. I was like, he said, it'll help you fall asleep. And I said, well, I don't have any problems falling asleep at the beginning of the night. It's just I wake up and I can't go back to sleep. And he said, well, it'll do that too. And I said, well, will I be able to still hear my children? Because that's important to me. And he goes, yeah, you'll still be able to hear your children. And then he goes, but I'm going to prescribe you one. It comes in a 1-pill form, but I only want you to take half of it before you go to bed. And I go, okay, can I write that down on my phone? I said, can I take my phone out and write that down so I don't forget it? And he goes, why do you need to write it down? And I said, because I don't want to forget what you're telling me. And he goes, well, it'll be on the prescription when you pick it up from the pharmacy. Like, me wanting to write stuff down was odd. And I said, oh, okay. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I have had prescriptions before where I didn't understand what was on the prescription paper, or the notes were left off of it. Like, that's a frequent thing that between the doctor's communication, especially if it's something that comes in one and then you're supposed to only take half. I like to write things down. That's just who I am. He goes, I hear you have some injuries. I said, well, I don't currently have an injury. I said, I've just been having injuries from working out, and I'm not sure if I'm treating them correctly. So I wanted to ask you about them so that when they happen again, I'll know how to treat what I should do. I said, I've pulled my back out 3 times. And I don't know what I'm supposed to be taking. I said it usually lasts 3 to 4 days. I don't know what. I've just been laying with my legs up the wall. He interrupted me and he said, well, don't lift anything heavy. Don't overdo your workouts. And I said, well, only one of them was a workout. I said, another one was me just pulling a basket off of a top shelf. And he goes, well, yeah, that'll happen. And I was like, but it didn't start happening until January. I was like, how am I supposed to treat that? Am I supposed to ice it? Am I supposed to put heat on it? Is Tylenol okay to take? Because I've been taking extra strength Tylenol. And he goes, yeah, all that's fine. I'm like, okay. And then I asked him about my elbow bursitis. I said, I went to Google. This is what it said it could be. I'm not sure that's what it was. It really scared me. It got all inflamed. I got dizziness and nauseated. And he goes, yeah, just put ice on it next time. Okay. And then I said, I also think I have low iron. I said, I've struggled with anemia all my life. And he goes, well, why aren't you taking an iron supplement? I said, because it makes me nauseous. And he goes, well, why don't you just take a multivitamin that has iron in it? I said, because it makes me nauseous. He said, well, it shouldn't. He said, it has such a low amount of iron in it. It shouldn't make you nauseous. I said, but it does. Yeah, it does. I've tried, many years. I said, I only take gummy multivitamins because I am sensitive to the iron in the actual vitamins. I didn't tell him. I'm thinking in my head, my mom also has a problem with iron in multivitamins. She can't take multivitamins either. I said, yeah, I've tried the slow release iron as well. And I said, and it's nausea. It's that feeling of being pregnant. And I'm thinking, you're not going to know what that feels like. And also car sick. That's the level of nauseousness I get. Like I can't get anything done. I said, so I had an IUD placed in because we figured my previous doctor thought it might be linked to my periods. And this is TMI. I said, and I felt like it was working, but now it's not. And I'm chewing a lot of ice. And he comes over and he pulls down my eyelids and he goes, well, your veins look fine. He was like, if you have low iron, it's not that low. And I go, but I'm like really craving ice and chewing ice. And every time that happens, I have low iron. And he goes, well, it doesn't look like it, but we'll do some blood work. It just was very dismissive. And so at that point, I was starting to tear up. And then I said, well, do you want to see pictures? I have pictures on my phone because I also was trying to tell him about my swollen ankles. I'd never had swollen ankles before, even, not this bad. Even during pregnancy, they were filled with fluid, but like I have lines from my socks every night. And I said, do you want to see a picture of my elbow bursitis? He goes, no, I don't need to see anything on your phone. I'm like, again, with the phone issue, like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to come into a doctor's office with physically printed out pictures and a notebook and pencil. Like, that wasn't on there. And then he goes, did you have anything for breakfast this morning? I said, yeah, I had a protein shake and a bell pepper and some coffee. And he goes, oh, well, I guess I can't run your lab work today because you've eaten things and that'll just mess your lab work up. But how was I supposed to know that he was going to run? If I had been told that there was a possibility of him running lab work on my very first visit with him, then I would have fasted. He goes, yeah, you should have fasted today. And I'm thinking, but how was I supposed to know that? So at this point, I'm like starting to tear up, but I'm like, I'm not letting this man see me tear up. And so I just kind of gave up. I just kind of gave up in the appointment. And he is like listening to my heart and listening to me breathe. And then he goes, have you found a GYN yet? And I said, no, that's next on my list. He said, yeah, you should have done that before now. And I was like, you think? I came in here to feel better, to like have my questions answered and, I don't know, get some help with my general health, because I do feel like my health has been going downhill, but I couldn't even tell him that. I didn't feel like, at that point, I just put a wall up, and I just wanted to get out of there as fast as I could. So then he goes, "Oh, it was nice to meet you." Sorry, I can't breathe out of my nose now. He said, "It was nice to meet you." I mean, he might have looked me in the eyes maybe twice. Maybe not even that. Maybe only once the whole time of the visit. And so he pointed to where the checkout was. It was the one lady at the front desk. And there were other patients she was helping out, so I had to stand in line again. And she said, "Are you supposed to come back for another visit?" I said, "He scheduled lab work." And she said, "Well, when can you come?" And I said, "My schedule is flexible. What do you have available?" And so I'm supposed to go this Monday for lab work, and I'm going to cancel it. And I've got to find another doctor. It took me a month to get this appointment. I'm tired of feeling tired all the time. I'm tired of getting older. I have a birthday tomorrow. I turn 45 tomorrow. And I feel like my health has just been going down. Like I will lose 10 pounds and I gain those same 10 pounds back. I can't breathe at all. My nose is completely clogged up. My ears are now clogged up too. I'm tired of crying. I'm not on my period, y'all. That's how upset I am. It's hard when you move and you have to find a new doctor. And it's important that you find a doctor that you feel like listens to you and doesn't just see you as another number. And I feel like those doctors are difficult to find. Like, they're already snatched up, you know? And we move so frequently that I have to change doctors frequently. Like, in the past 5 years, I've changed doctors 3 times. And not because I wanted to. It was because we moved. And it's just hard. So my children go to a pediatrician because of course I got on top of that. I put them first. And I remember their pediatrician saying that they see adults in their office as well. So I called to see if they could schedule me in as a new patient because I really like my kid's doctor. She's very proactive and very nice, very good bedside manner. And they said that when I called the main line where you schedule appointments, they said that they didn't have any open appointments for anybody in her office, but to reach out to her through my chart, and she might consider asking her if she would consider taking me on as a patient too. So I hope that works out, because if not, I'm gonna have to go through, a shot in the dark. Because it's so hard to find doctors who also accept your insurance plan. Oh, my nose is running. Sorry, I just needed to decompress, and I know I probably shouldn't be doing it on the internet. I did already call my husband and tell him everything I just told you. I thought, well, I'll hop on camera, because I know I'm not the only one that struggles with finding a doctor that you mesh with, and especially because I don't have anything really serious going on right now. If I had something super serious, I know a lot of times you have to overlook a doctor's personality and particulars to get good care. I've done that before, okay? I understand that. But this is for, somebody who I'm going to be seeing at my worst, You know, someone who I would see if I had the flu, or if I had a minor injury, or like my general health, getting my weight under control, making sure, staying on top of my blood pressure, my cholesterol. It's someone I'm going to be seeing at least once a year, probably twice a year. And it's important, you know, to be able to be open with that doctor, you know, to be able to share and not shut down and feel like. And I at one point said to him, you know, when he was telling me I couldn't take notes on my phone, he said, "Why do you need to take notes on your phone?" And I said, "Because that's who I am. I like to write things down so that I don't forget them later. So I remember what you said, because what you say is important to me." And he goes, "Well, you could just remember it later, or you can look on my chart for what we talked about." It just was very dismissive, you know, but I'm not going to harp on it anymore. I really want sugar right now, but I've been so good about not having sugar. I had sugar last Sunday, but I haven't had any processed sugar this week. And this is that point in time where I just want to eat a bunch of cookies, but I'm not going to. Stay strong. Might go down and eat some sweet bell peppers. I've had a weird craving for sweet bell peppers recently. I just cannot seem to eat enough of them. I'm going to eat like 5 a day. So I'm wondering if I have other vitamin deficiencies that I don't know about. I don't know if I will do a follow-up with this. I know there are others of you out there like me who just struggle, one, to advocate for yourself, and two, to find a doctor that you could trust and to give your personal information to, that doesn't just see you as a number, doesn't try to rush you out of their office. I feel like those kind of doctors, like I said, are difficult to find because they've already been snatched up by all of y'all. All right. Today's a good day to wear sunscreen. It's rainy outside. I did put on sunscreen today. My tears have washed it all away because it was not water resistant. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.